We are human beings also, and this is totally unbearable.
We have a serious problem in this country in general with addiction. We have let this problem get bigger and bigger and bigger.
In the interaction with robots, how we can build trust with the robots if the robots smell like us.
Injured victims of the ongoing military crackdown in Myanmar outnumber the beds here at the main hospital in Cox's Bazar. Few families have been spared by what many observers are calling textbook ethnic cleansing, perpetrated by Myanmar's military in Rakhine State. 6-year-old Fatima broke her leg jumping off the second floor of her burning home to flee a Burmese army attack. Now she barely talks.
I'm feeling sad, not only for my child, but also for other children who have been killed by the military. The fathers of such children might feel sad for their children like me. The army raped many girls, beat and killed many people.
Many families were torn apart during the dangerous journey across the border, leaving many youngsters without guidance and care. Registering the children and tracing their families is the first priority for aid groups like the International Committee of the Red Cross. But with more than 500,000 arrivals, the task is daunting.
It's difficult in terms of restoring family links to follow up on a person because they move a lot and they are scattered all around the different camps from Ukiah to Teknaf. So locate them first and maintain contact with them is complicated.
As injuries get treated, there are also plans for a mental health clinic for families suffering from severe trauma.
We are doctors and we are human beings also, and this is totally unbearable. This pain they are suffering through, the situation they are going through, they are totally devastating condition.
While Bangladesh prepares to build up existing camps for more than 500,000 new arrivals, many remain concerned that the unseen damages will not be looked after. Steve Sanford reporting for VOA from Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh.
An earlier wave of anti-Rohingya violence brought refugee Bibi Asha Mohammed Tahrir to the United States.
They shot and killed people. They burned down everything. We had no place to stay.
Tahir and her family fled Myanmar, arriving in Malaysia before reaching Fort Wayne, Indiana in 2014, one of the first Rohingya families to settle here. Today, there are about 150 Rohingya families in Fort Wayne, a small fraction of the more than 6,000 Burmese in the city. The linguistic and religious differences among them are raising familiar tensions.
Most of them are, I think almost 100%, they are Muslims. Muslims, you know. Muslims, their blood is Muslims, not Buddhists, not Christians.
Abraham Tang, a pastor and a leader in Fort Wayne's Burmese Chin community, expresses many of the same resentments Rohingya face in Myanmar.
That's unfortunate because I want anybody from Myanmar to know that they're welcome in our community.
But some community members like Abraham Tang worry that an increasing number of new arrivals could fuel tensions.
I foresee the Burmese people and the Rohingya people in the future, sooner or later, we will have conflict. That's not good for the Fort Wayne community.
I don't see that happening. We have a very safe community.
All the Rohingya refugees in Fort Wayne that agreed to speak to VOA insist they do not believe they have been marginalized or persecuted by other Burmese in the area. Although she now feels safer, Bibi Asha Mohammed Tahir is still trying to feel settled.
We couldn't find peace in our own country. How could we find peace here?
Peace might remain elusive, but she could consider herself one of the lucky ones. Even as the number of Rohingya refugees grows, fewer are finding refuge in the United States. And it's likely to get more difficult. The Trump administration, citing safety concerns, has capped the level of new refugees from anywhere in the world at 45,000 for the coming year. That's the lowest level in the history of the current refugee program. Kane Fairbaugh, VOA News, Fort Wayne, Indiana.
We have a serious problem in this country in general with addiction. We have let this problem get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Reading can move you, enlighten you. I read literature at a time as literature with a branded fist, as a political weapon. I looked at the content, and it was only later that I discovered that literature in itself is pleasure. I had a career in what we call development cooperation. I started that in the late 60s, and after about 5 years working in African countries, I got involved in a program where persecuted writers are being given refuge in cities in Germany, and Frankfurt was one of the first cities to set up this program, Cities of Refuge, what is called here Cities of Asylum. I was involved right from the beginning. The first organization was called International Parliament of Writers. In 2006, then we came together and established ICORD, International Cities of Refuge Network. The idea was to convince cities, not governments, cities, to give refuge to persecuted writers. Give a space for creativity and writing and working, which at home in their own countries couldn't do.
"91 Americans die every day from an opioid-related overdose. In Philadelphia, Anthony, who is addicted to prescription painkillers and heroin, sees people dying around him.
I go down into like a track area to get high, and I found a guy down there. He's dead. Been down there for days. I mean, that's somebody's kid, that's somebody's father, that's somebody's brother.
America's opioid epidemic was fueled by the overprescription of pills like oxycodone.
Nowhere else in the world do they use opioids the way we do in America. We are 5% of the world's population. We use 85% of the world's opioids.
He's not responsive at all.
Since 1999, 183,000 overdose deaths were attributed to prescription opioids, and the rate is increasing each year. Unlike previous drug crises, this one often begins with the family doctor.
We're at the tip of the spear. We're writing the medications. And there's a lot of pressure on physicians through HCAP scores, patient satisfaction scores, that I'm happy. So if I want a happy patient, I'm going to give you, quote, what you want.
Opioids can block pain, but they come with severe side effects, and when mixing with other drugs, they can lead to addiction.
We have a serious problem in this country in general with addiction. We have not treated it as the health disease that it needs to be looked at. And so for years, we have let this problem get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Davey abused opioids for 10 years. He says just a small amount of fentanyl mixed with heroin can kill.
I had a good friend, the bag was empty. I scraped an empty bag for him. So greens he had greens, and he OD'd. I had to narc on him 3 times. So that's how powerful it is, you know, and you don't expect it, you know, you don't expect to fall off, and you don't expect to OD, no one does.
Experts say it's not just the sheer volume of addicts that's behind the push to halt the epidemic, but also who the addicts are.
It's now impacting suburban teenagers and people that get the attention in the United States, where in the past many people of color and other minorities have also had these problems, but it hasn't quite gotten the same attention.
All rise. And that lack of attention may be a factor in how the U.S. legal system is handling addiction.
You've got fentanyl in your system, and it's a killer. You've got a terminal illness. You know that, right? You can't survive it. You either end up in prison or you end up dead.
This is Judge Jerry Cohen's drug court in Miami, Florida.
We can help you. We can send you to our clinic.
All right. So why don't you go with George so we can get you admitted as soon as possible, all right?
Instead of jail, Cohen sends individuals with opioid addictions to this detoxification center where they're evaluated by a team of doctors.
The Suboxone's definitely helped. It's helped with the cravings. And
we have to treat the patient. There's a chemical physical dependency and also the biological brain dependency. And so we have to treat both.
Ashley Dunn became addicted to prescription painkillers and heroin after the birth of her first child. She was jailed and lost custody of her daughter. Now drug-free for 6 months, Ashley's able to care for her second child, who was born addicted to opioids and suffered from severe withdrawal symptoms.
And watching her detox was the hardest thing I think anybody would ever have to go through. Because you did it. You know, I did it to her. You know, she's my motivation.
That's not going to help you stop using drugs. You're going to continue to use drugs.
Back in court, Judge Cohen is stern with addicts she deems unwilling to change their behavior. For those committed to recovery, Cohen believes she can help.
What I find is if we can get them stabilized, they are much more eager to engage in treatment, and they're much more able to focus on getting well.
As soon as the pills came into my life, everything else dropped out.
Allison Norland has been through Judge Cohen's court. After having her first child while using drugs, she sobered up, but then tragedy struck. Her father-in-law accidentally hit her daughter with his car, killing her in front of Allison. The trauma sent her back on a pill binge.
I didn't know how to be anymore. I didn't want to be anymore. To go from being a mom and loving this little thing so much more than I love myself, to having her gone and having this just absence in my heart.
After an arrest and time at another rehab center, Allison was sent by the drug court here to the Village in Miami, a residential and outpatient treatment center. Like 70% of substance abusers, Allison has a history of physical, mental and sexual abuse.
Services need to be trauma-informed.
Frank Rabito is Senior Vice President for West Care, which runs the village.
Oftentimes, your trauma is a trigger for the use of drugs. So if we can deal with trauma, we can also impact some of the causative factors associated with drug use.
My therapist has been incredible and has helped me through, again, things I did in the dark that I never thought would come to light, or things that happened to me that I never wanted to talk about. I've talked about with her, and it's because I know she can understand, and I know she can relate to what I'm saying and what I've done.
Okay, let's begin with the checkout over here.
Allison's court-ordered stay at the village was initially for 90 days, and at first she was very hostile about being here. 4 months later, she made a turnaround.
To look back at myself and to see how far I've come and to see the growth and the change, and to have other people tell me they can see the change in me, to have my family welcome me back with open arms because I am working so hard and I am able to share this with them. It's been amazing.
Next time you feel like doing something that is...
Allison says the safety she has found here has allowed her to confront some painful realities.
I put my daughter in harm's way for a pill. I put my life in danger for a pill. I was risking everything for this drug, and that's it. Chasing a high that was never, ever going to be enough. It's never enough.
Allison Norland now wants to become an addiction specialist to help others like herself. That would be another success story for Judge Jerry Cohen, who arrived in Miami-Dade County shortly after it launched the nation's first drug court in 1989.
There was a crack cocaine epidemic. They were taking a plea or going to jail, getting out, and getting immediately rearrested.
Cohen's drug court gives people the chance to beat their addictions while eventually getting their felony drug charge erased from the record if they complete the year-long program.
We're going to drop your case, and then we're going to let you graduate.
Drug court is not for everyone, and Judge Cohen has little patience for those who don't follow the rules.
It's such a crazy story you're telling. Go back and give me a urine sample. How long have you been using oxys and morphine, and how long?
A couple of months.
That's not true. I don't think that sick people should be in jail. I don't want them dead. And sometimes I have to, take them into custody because I want them to be alive. I want them to have a fighting chance at least.
Judge Cohen believes success is keeping people sober and rebuilding their lives.
Case drop.
Chris Simpkins, VOA News, Miami.
Good job. All right, so you know what you have to do. We're proud of you.
The potential to use the sense of smell, the odors under the threshold, under the awareness, is incredible what we can do with technology.
My name is Eva Marcan. I started working at VOA in 1998. We're originally from former Yugoslavia, so we moved to America right when the war started. In 91, when I came here, in class I would always spend a lot of time doodling. With wall art, graffiti, it opened up the door to exploration for a teenager. But you can definitely come out and do a piece like this or do a piece like this, and it would be recognized, and you also tell a story through it. I connect art with journalism because it's a story that changes, and it's not just a view, it's not just a personal perspective, it's a story, and it's a story to be told, and that's it.
I'm Jim Malone, and I work the political beat. I cover what drives the political issues in the United States, what voters think, what drives the candidates, how public opinion shifts on one issue or another. It keeps you in touch with the American people and where they want the country to go. It's a great way to get a window on what's happening in the United States. I'm Jim Malone, and my beat is U.S. politics.
water needs a good wash before it ever reaches your faucet.
Whether you're treating for a population of 3,000 or for 3 million, the process is going to look a lot like this.
It's called conventional water treatment, and it makes lake and river water safe to drink. It starts with a chemical that attracts and binds together the stuff you want to take out.
We have this coagulant, and it's positively charged, whereas most of the dirt and bacteria have a negative charge.
It's a crucial, if temporarily backward, step.
When we added our coagulant, it actually made the water dirtier. We created these flocks. But now as we're going, all those flocks are settling out.
This process of sedimentation makes the things you don't want to drink sink, a key step in creating cleaner water for you and for the rivers.
This is all part of the process that diverts those solids from being returned to the river and put to beneficial use instead.
In this case, the solids will go to landfill. Now, back to the drinking water.
There's some fine, small particles that can float on that aren't removed by gravity settling. And here's where we remove those small particles.
The technical name is dual media filtration, which means that within any one filter, water flows through both coal and sand. To clean those filters, the plant forces water through them in reverse. That's called backwash. In the next step, filtered water is disinfected by adding chlorine. Each step is lab tested, something important in times of erratic weather.
If you get a lot of rain in the watershed, it can stir up dirt and debris and carry that into the river. And when that's taken into a water treatment plant, you need to increase your coagulant dose to account for that higher amount of solids in the river.
Engineers at this cutting-edge treatment plant say modern technology can keep today's drinking water cleaner and safer than any other point in history.
Virtual reality with an added dimension. Scientists from Britain's University of Sussex have developed virtual worlds that even smell like the real thing. When users open a virtual door, in this case into a rainforest, diffusers spray the appropriate scent for added authenticity.
It is a really immersive experience that you have because you're exploring this environment and you have smells that correspond with it.
Smell technology has been tried before, memorably with smell-o-vision movies in the 1960s. These scientists say it's on the cusp of a comeback.
The connection with emotion, memories, and the potential to use the sense of smell, the odor, under the threshold, under the awareness, is incredible what we can do with technology.
And not just for entertainment. Here, a driving simulator has been fitted with a scent diffuser.
In this demo, we wanted to deliver the smell of lavender every time the driver exceeds the speed. We chose lavender because it's a very calming smell.
Mobile phones could also send alerts using odours. Businesses are already experimenting with using scent to influence customers' behaviour.
Not only for marketing in stores, so creating the logo brand, but in the other side you can create and stimulate impulse buying. So you're in a library, you smell coffee, and then actually you are unconscious, but you are suddenly having the need to drink a coffee.
Maggioni says scent is vital in human interactions. For example, when men smell tears, levels of testosterone are reduced and they show more empathy. That physiological reaction can be applied to new technology.
In the interaction with robots, how we can build trust with a robot if the robots smell like us.
An exciting and perhaps for some daunting future. Scientists say the sense of smell, until now largely unexploited, is about to be stimulated by the march of technology.
These days, when shopping can be done with a quick swipe or tap, the question for many brick-and-mortar retailers might just be, what now? But industry insiders aren't discounting stores just yet.
I'm a big believer in the physical store, and I think when you look at just pure volume of sales, you still see the majority of that happening in a physical environment.
MasterCard and Marie Claire magazine have teamed up to create the next big thing. A pop-up shop in New York City that brings the convenience of online shopping in-store. Window shopping is taken literally here. with a touchscreen display that lets users shop around the clock. Inside, fitting rooms allow for checkout and payment via touchscreen mirrors.
We look at solving for one very key point of friction, which is how do I reduce the amount of time that somebody has to wait and actually go through the checkout process.
Technology is allowing brick-and-mortar stores to respond swiftly to ever-changing consumer tastes.
In the online world where you can track page views, click-throughs, we can track impressions, discoveries, dwell time, and provide that real-time data and analytics.
Retail company Beta uses cameras to measure foot traffic and tablets to display information that vendors can change on the fly.
Physical retail is probably the #1 biggest area of opportunity for brand, product, and awareness. The future really is looking at is how do you start monetizing the space and the services that you provide, in addition to the fact that you can purchase products.
Not to be left out is the social element of shopping.
This is a playground for women. It really brings together, in a social way, interesting women so that they can experience this all together.
The next big thing in retail? It's all about bridging the digital and the physical.
Guitars are a combination of 4 things. They're musical instruments, something to make a sound to make music with. They are art. You can see it in Vogue magazine. It's part of our heritage. They are complex tools for the musician to use to do their job.
There's about 250 people making guitars here. Make 10, 12,000 guitars a year here, and then we make, something like 18,000, 20,000 guitars in other factories outside of this country.
From start to high gloss finish, it's all made in America.
At Arches National Park in southern Utah, National Parks traveler Micah Meyer could see firsthand why it's one of the most visited sites in the state.
Even outside of the park and all around Utah, there are these arches that just naturally form from the rock eroding. But in Arches National Park are some of the most magnificent, either really large or there's 2 or 3 all clustered together, or there's a double arch where you can see through 2 arches at once. And then, of course, this delicate arch.
Delicate Arch, considered by many as the most famous natural stone arch in the world.
One of the most famous because it's essentially on its own on top of a hill with a giant vista and mountains behind it.
And visitors one by one take their time running or walking into the arch to take their picture, or waiting over here to take the photo.
After his visit to Arches, Micah took a boat tour.
I'm on the Colorado River, halfway between Arches National Park and Canyonlands National Park.
It gives you a perspective of this land, which many people describe as Mars with water, because it's just so arid and so red and orange looking. It's just this really cool juxtaposition, not only of views, but of the wildlife that survives in the desert.
But for Micah, what came next was the real highlight.
Made it to the Island in the Sky portion of Canyonlands National Park just in time for sunset.
This is where you're able to drive along a scenic road that takes you along all these incredible overlooks that give you expansive views of the canyon, of the rivers, and it's a wow moment.
Julie Tabo, VOA News, Washington.